I am Bret. This is Nirmal. We are
Yeah,
here. And
welcome.
it is a balmy 70 plus degrees in Paris in March.
It is so warm here.
It is so hot, we're not going to do this. I'm not going to do this.
This is not
We're
happening.
not going to do
This is
that.
not
We're
happening.
not.
We tried. We tried.
We brought all our winter clothes and we're here in t-shirts.
Oh, speaking of which, we both have.
We both have.
We both have.
We both have Foxy.
Yeah.
Foxy the Kubernetes pirate.
Mine has a parrot though. It has a French
I
parrot.
know. I don't have, I'm in a nice beach.
There we go.
Well, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
We're here live for an hour, and we're taking your questions on KubeCon and what you want to do, what you want to know about KubeCon.
What's going on?
There's a giant line of people suddenly all getting espressos behind us. We didn't really plan for that.
It's okay. That means this is live, like we promised, from this event, right in real time.
Yes.
And what we're going to be covering is what we've been seeing.
Yep.
The keynotes.
Yep. Keynote themes.
Topics, themes, what we've been hearing.
New vendors we're seeing, new releases.
Absolutely, new projects. It's been a really good event so far. There's a lot of energy here.
Yeah, there's the record-setting 12,000 people in this.
I didn't even know that.
In this place, yeah, it's the largest KubeCon ever.
12,000, and that's rare for like the EU, the non-North American conferences.
I think I feel like last year though they did say in Amsterdam that it was also a record setting. So
I thought Amsterdam was like maybe 9,000.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
Okay.
8,000,
yeah.
9,000?
It wasn't 12. It wasn't 12.
No, but I didn't even know that.
But I mean, in North America, I guess we've moved on from Kubernetes to I don't know.
GenAI. We're going to talk about that too. GenAI.
Hello, Martin's here from the Netherlands.
Hey.
Hello, Martin. All right, so we're gonna go through a whole list of stuff.
Yes.
That we want to talk about, but you bring up topics you want to know about, and we're gonna change the topic to what you want to talk about.
We want to see you in the chat. We've got it pulled up. We'll be taking a look live. We want to see what you want to know about KubeCon, but. Let's start with the keynote. Should we start with the keynotes?
Yeah. And also, we're going to have some friends maybe stop by later, so it might be a little random.
It's like a grab bag, maybe?
Grab bag. I like that.
Serendipity. We're driven by serendipity.
Yeah.
In Paris.
Your question. First day yesterday.
Yes.
Okay. Well, actually, did you go to the day zero, the pre-day?
I did. The day zero, they had. I don't even know how many co-located events. It was a lot of co-located
events.
That's
how many? Exactly a lot.
Exactly a lot. Big ones this year, I got to say, is ArgoCon, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
Huge attendance there. A lot of interest in Argo CD. No, not even just Argo CD. The whole Argo ecosystem.
Yeah, all the Argo.
All the Argos.
4 projects.
Yeah.
All the Argos.
Including Argo CD, which is the main project that a lot of people adopt, but a lot of interest in Argo workflows for your data analytics, machine learning, all those buzzy new things, using Argo workflows for orchestrating pipelines, data pipelines, in the same tooling that's related to how you're deploying your applications on Kubernetes, right? And I think Argo's having it's been having a moment, and it is continuing to have a moment. But yeah.
I mean, if you've been on this channel before, you know I'm a big fan of Argo CD specifically. All
Absolutely.
the Argo projects are great, but
Absolutely.
I think it's a great way to deploy your applications. Especially if you're an application developer.
Yep.
This is an infrastructure conference.
Yes.
Let's remind ourselves, this is an infrastructure conference full of developers.
Yes.
A little bit different than like a developer conference.
I want to emphasize that because I think this conference is attracting more developers. Every iteration. And the platform day, the platform engineering day, was full of sessions that were trying to resolve that tension between giving the developers what they want from the platform, and then also not overburdening the infrastructure people to have every combination of everything under the sun to support that, and
not making the developers do the infrastructure as well as their application development
job. And there was a great quote last year. I forgot who was saying it to me, so I apologize if you're out there and you hear this, but we shouldn't make developers worry about X or like security or networking or infrastructure, and that has always been a point of friction that Kubernetes is trying to resolve, but that abstraction is always kind of modifying as time goes on.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm seeing with the platform day on the first day, or the zero
day zero. I call it day zero.
I always think of like a vulnerability or something, but a day zero at the day zero
True.
platform day is really acknowledgement of.
Someone has a bigger mic than we do.
Yes. So they were acknowledging the fact that you have to understand the organizational structure of your teams, of the organization you're in, their business needs, and then map that to what the platform provides, and not just putting a bunch of tools out there and moving on. So that's a long way to say that day zero platform, and of course, I think there's 12 plus co-located events. So it's unfortunately impossible for just Bret and I to cover like all the co-located events.
I mean, a good thing about that is that, one, those events are highlighted, right? Like they're not just a couple sessions or a track, which can sometimes get lost in the sea of all the stuff. They actually get their own day, and unlike in previous years, last year they changed it at the CNCF and the KubeCon, where you buy one pass, you get access to all of them. So you don't have to buy like an Argo and then a Flux one and a platform engineering one and a DevSecOps one, like all of these different ones. You just get access to day zero. And that's, to me, because a lot of us, we got so many roles, we can't just do one day zero stack. Back to your topic earlier, though, about developers being overburdened with infrastructure responsibility and all that. I had a very interesting question from a VC on day zero, and she asked me, what do you think about shift left from the context of giving the developers all the responsibility? And we had this whole conversation that we're going to do. I'm going to do a separate episode on about that. Just because you shift left visibility and accessibility to infrastructure doesn't mean you should shift left all the responsibility.
Absolutely.
And I think that's getting lost in the message.
We hung out a little bit with our friend Laura earlier this week, who specializes in consulting around this topic. We should definitely. Hi, Laura. We should definitely bring that up. If there's one thing that I've learned from day zero, it's that organizational marriage with the developers and the infrastructure, the line being drawn on the Kubernetes control plane, if you will, is in flux, and it's active, and we definitely need to do some shows on that. I think we've done a lot around technologies that help enable different permutations of that. But then really figuring out how to derive what your organizational structure is, where you want to be.
Right, where do you draw the line?
Yep.
Because, I mean, if you've been in this game a while, and we have, decades, you go back 15 years, even just 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, we had separate conferences for infrastructure from developer conferences. So like if you think of Microsoft, before they had Ignite and all those, they would have Microsoft's developer conference, and then you go to like their systems management conference, a totally separate one, just for the ops side of things. And if you were a developer that was interested in ops, you were basically there with a bunch of people that don't develop every day. Right? And now today, we're actually at an infrastructure conference. It's like a developer conference disguised as an infrastructure conference. I almost feel like.
Okay. I think
or you can go the other way. You can go the other way. Hot take.
I feel like that's a hot take because that has been such a point of friction for this community for a long time. Developer experience.
How do we reconcile?
So I'd love to get more from you on why you feel that way. But I kind of agree to a certain extent, in the sense that I think it's also the 10th year of Kubernetes.
Yes. Happy
10
birthday.
years. We didn't even start the show with that.
We should have said that. We should have said happy birthday, Kubernetes.
Yeah, happy birthday to Kubernetes.
Technically, the first KubeCon was, I think, 2015. So next year will be the happy birthday of KubeCon.
Yes, but this is
the actual project.
I think what you're keying in on is it's 10 years of this.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're finally over that kind of initial phase.
Yeah.
And I think there's enough developers that have been developing, deploying to platforms built with Kubernetes, that they're coming to this conference to learn what to tell their platform team what they need, right?
Yeah, so we actually had, I'm gonna copy this link here into the chat, because we're gonna have some things to share with you physically. Like, we're gonna share you a link that you can click on.
Is that a physical thing?
That's a virtual thing, but you're actually gonna get something. So some interesting posts, some interesting information. So we're going. There was at the keynote this morning. We're going to jump ahead just for 1 second because we're talking about end users and like commits and software development. And we thought this was pretty interesting from Carlos.
Yeah.
One of your friends.
Yeah. Carlos Santana.
He
Not to be confused with Carlos Santana.
The artist, that's right. I'm sure that this Carlos is also an artist in some way. He's a software artist. So we're going to go back to the chat here so I can post this. But by the way,
shout out
right there. He's posting in chat. Nick is here from India. Kamal's here from Maryland. Hello.
Hello.
We see you in chat. But we're going to post this link real quick. Make sure I got the right one in there.
Maryland.
So we... this was an interesting graph that I can't show you on screen because we lack the technology to do this currently, but there was a great graph shown on the number of user commits in specific projects.
Yes.
And
what does it show? But not just from like AWS and...
Right. From end user, yeah.
From end users. That's a specific definition here at KubeCon.
Not maintainers, not maintainers, but
There's a distinction between the, let's say, cloud providers, the providers of Kubernetes, and end users, which are like the customers.
Yeah. And what's crazy about this graph is that if I'm going to just describe it for the audio podcast, is that on the top is Backstage, the sort of it's kind of hard to read there.
So we have two axes.
Number
One
of commits.
is all the different projects.
Yeah.
And then the number of commits by end user commits.
Right. And Backstage is number one. It is more than all the other ones added up, I think.
With over 1,700 commits with end users.
Then next on the list is
KCL.
Then
Argo.
Dragonfly,
Prometheus, KHGPT, which I do want to talk about for a hot second.
That's the only GP, or what, I don't even know what KCL is actually. So.
I would argue that machine learning and LLMs are going to integrate into everything
all
we're
of that,
seeing.
all that
probably,
stuff in there.
Probably.
Container D is actually, what's crazy is end users are actually, Container D being one of the lowest level components, and you have end user commits.
Yeah.
It's something that's so silent in the background and not visible to the naked.
Shout out to Phil, who we had just on the show to talk about.
He may actually stop by. He may stop by. Little teaser on that. All right, so back to day zero. So I think we're done with day zero.
So the other thing I wanted to kind of highlight, if I can, is so AWS open sourced a project called Carpenter for auto-scaling the nodes in a different way last year at Amsterdam. And this KubeCon, Microsoft announced that they are using Carpenter as well and contributing to it. So that's, I just love to see that ecosystem because everyone benefits from the ability to scale their nodes in a what I think is a better way from like the classic cluster autoscaler. So just want to do a shout out to that.
Nice.
Because I
would
work
do
closely with that.
I would do the clap sound, but again, lacking the technology. All right.
The end.
So Next up we have day one. So day one.
Yes. Keynote.
Put the keynote in one word.
Okay.
Actually, no, 2 words.
Okay.
Do you remember these 2 words? So there was a joke, and maybe you weren't part of that chat. Sorry.
No worries.
Someone put in, I'm one of the. I think it's one of the ambassadors. Sorry if I'm stealing this from you. And they said, all you need to know about the keynote: GenAI, GPU, GenAI, GPU.
Just one word.
Yeah. It was all one string. So.
So what is it this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the theme here is obviously way more projects. Like the number of projects integrating AI, LLMs into them, or new projects showing up is just, I can't list them all. I didn't even bother making a list. We're seeing all the traditional projects start to consider how they're going to use AI, not if. I think if was maybe like a year ago or so. And I would say the other thing is we're starting to hear, we've got a lot of examples of people on stage talking about what they're actually doing with it. Like what real world examples, use cases, end users that are actually talking about their use of it. And it's all riding on Kubernetes, which if you'd asked 2-3 years ago, nobody would have thought, traditionally, I mean, I had someone on stage that talked about traditional AI or ML operators don't use Kubernetes. Like they haven't used Kubernetes, and this is a very new thing for them. But I think there was a couple of quotes that came out of the last 2 keynotes of people saying like, we only deploy GenAI on Kubernetes.
Correct, and
Yeah.
I just want to highlight, this is separate from KubeCon, but NVIDIA had their announcement of their new super duper chips.
Yeah.
The Blackwell chips,
Yeah.
like a few days ago. And in one of their slides, it was their chip, like their, like the CUDA, or not the CUDA,
Yep.
but the chip itself.
Yep.
The next layer up was Kubernetes
Oh.
in their slides, right?
Yeah.
So you have the
Everything in between doesn't matter. It's just
no. Yeah,
it's
well,
chips.
I mean,
and then Kubernetes.
so I don't even know how much stronger of a validation that is
Right.
of Kubernetes' importance in this new wave that's heading, when we have the top provider of the hardware
Right.
and the software to do ML, highlighting in their presentation that Kubernetes is like one of the key infrastructure layers to enable all of this newfangled stuff, right?
Right.
And so, I know you have a word on your notes here for day one. I want you to get to that. What does that mean?
What?
What does Acorn pivoted to AI mean?
Yeah. So what we're starting to see, and this is going back. We got 10 more minutes of announcement. So we're doing people at 4:30. Okay.
This is what it's like doing a live show at a conference.
That's right. You have giveaways going on behind you with giant speakers and megaphones.
Yes.
All right. So there's what we're starting to see, and I'm going to talk about Acorn for a second because we haven't had yet Acorn on the show, I don't know all the details of why. Well, I can guess, but I haven't talked with Darren Shepard or the other founders on at length about what they're doing. But I did get to talk to the co-founder. So
they were focused on not AI.
Right. So Acorn is sort of a spin-off from Rancher that was focusing on a new deployment model, describing our deployments in a different way on
kind of
Kubernetes.
On DevX, more oriented toward DevX and deployment.
Yeah. Like basically replacing Helm or using something other than maybe Helm or Customize. And so Acorn was playing in that area.
Correct.
And we were actually going to have them on the show to talk through because they've been out a couple of years, so they're getting a little bit stable now, or were, spoiler. But then AI happened, and basically it's all about startups finding opportunity. And the maturity of the market and people, the way they deploy, was that world was getting a little stable, so it was actually a little harder to convince people to move from Helm or Argo CD
it was
or
kind
Flux.
Of the default. It has all its.
Yeah, it's not perfect.
It's not perfect.
But
Everyone
we've all moved on. We're we figured it out. We're just gonna whatever.
Yeah.
And when AI showed up, they realized there was probably more opportunity for us there. So they have actually pivoted to focusing on LLMs, and they have GPT Script now, which you might want to look that up, GPT Script, and they're going to be playing in the AI game now. And I haven't really played with it, but we've already talked with them at the booth, trying to figure out how, what does this look like? What is the future? Are we what releases are coming? So when should we have you on the show? When should we talk about something that's going to exist still in 6 months, right? Because AI is moving so fast. I don't really want to have shows where in 3 months when someone searches it on YouTube, that's not even the thing anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's not what they're doing. So we're trying to figure out where this is all going to play out in terms of infrastructure management, infrastructure deployments, monitoring, security, and what AI is going to really provide us.
And I think I would like to think that we are in a good spot to identify which of those applications of ML and LLMs and GenAI will actually have a solid use case or provide some value.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe that's a challenge we should put onto ourselves for our audience and for you all out there to kind of help figure out what the space is doing, what it looks like. And to me, I think about this LLM and GenAI revolution in two kind of parts, right?
Okay.
The first part is, how do we use these tools?
Yeah.
Like, how is it being embedded into your applications that you're building for your customers? How is it changing the interfaces that we're doing?
Yeah.
What do we need to know about prompts and LangChain and RAG? And all these buzzwords,
Right,
not
right.
even buzzwords, just words and taxonomy about
Yeah.
this stuff. How do we use things like Copilot and Code Whisperer and Amazon Q and all these other tools out there to enable our jobs, right? And,
Right.
And how is it going to be the new interface to your Kubernetes infrastructure or your
Yeah.
applications or how we communicate?
Yeah.
Then there's also the other half, which is what does it mean to do GenAI and ML on Kubernetes?
On Kubernetes.
On EKS.
With Containerd or on Docker. And
on Docker, and or on your laptop, and like to do training and to do inference and like the kind of the next level down.
Yeah.
And I think of it in like those two kind of layers, and we're seeing these companies pivot kind of into those different directions, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a project, K8GPT.
All right, that was on the list.
That was on the list.
End user updates, right?
A big
project.
And I think I would put good money on that or something like that being higher user updates next time we do this kind of survey.
Yeah.
But K8GPT, that's like a new chat interface to your Kubernetes environment, right?
Yeah.
And so we spent time, you're a trainer, you spent time coming up with kubectl commands.
Yeah.
Helm commands, setting up Argo CD and all these things.
A lot of copy paste.
Yeah. I see a future where you don't think about kubectl, and you just have a prompt, you just have an open-ended area.
Yeah.
And you say you speak to you chat with your cluster.
Yeah. How are you feeling today, cluster?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know.
We're kidding, but
it has a little.
We're like totally there.
Yeah.
Where you might say, "Hey, system, I would like a new cluster." Here, okay, you have a new cluster.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to deploy this application that kind of looks like this, but it's tweaked in this way. Okay, here it is.
So I can already chat with ChatGPT on my phone using my voice, and it'll respond in voice.
Absolutely.
So I feel like we're basically full speed ahead on 2001 Space Odyssey.
So
that we're communicating.
What do I have to do, Brett, to get your voice to be my ChatGPT voice?
Oh, like I licensed my GenAI to you, like my likeness?
Every show I've been on, you've been trying to replace me. So I know you're running some Nirmal model somewhere with my voice.
Maybe a little.
Anyways.
So, by the way, hello. We got some other people in chat. We got Caesar in chat. What's up?
To the audience, I would love to know, like, what are you seeing out there in terms of like these tools and how are you using them? Because I think we're going to start exploring them more and more for sure.
Right.
It's interesting that Acorn pivoted.
Yeah, and they're just one example. Like I actually just wanted to mention
but not
them
the only,
because everybody knows about Rancher,
Yeah.
and Darren Shepard and his team. Like Darren's very. You can kind of just follow the stream of consciousness on Twitter of what's going on in the company, what they're releasing, what he's thinking about releasing.
He has strong opinions.
Yeah, and so it's not a surprise because if you've been watching them recently, they figured out GPT script and they kind of released that. So good luck to them.
Yep.
We're definitely, we're going to talk to them more and sort of figure out how we can do something on the show.
Do we have some questions yet?
All right, so we've got like 5 minutes left for talking about, we're going to have some guests on. So we got like 5 minutes left to talk about the show. So day one was all about GenAI.
Yeah.
Like if you are not doing anything with it in GenAI and you've decided you don't want to touch it, day one keynote was not for you.
And even if you are that person, I have bad news for you, which is you got to learn a little bit.
If you're not using AI, then your competitors are probably using AI.
And I understand the skepticism. I totally get that, but there are some uses. People are finding value.
Yeah.
And it's going to be needed. You're going to need to know this stuff for your job.
There was a graphic on day one where in the keynote they were showing a graphic of like the different parts of all the things using AI, and there was a lot on that graph.
Yeah.
It was a lot of zooming in and out of the graph and understanding relationships of tooling. It went really fast. There was no way to tell. Like Kubernetes was one dot. Like just all of Kubernetes is one dot on there, and there was 100 or more dots on that thing. It was a lot. So that's this year. So if you're watching, you're like, well, tell us about the GenAI stuff. We're going to have a lot of shows on that. A lot of the people coming on our show, we're going to talk about AI and their tooling. So come back more on Thursday.
So day two to pivot.
Yep.
Totally
different.
But kind of related, a little bit related. So day 2 was about energy. Is that right?
Yeah, energy.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it was about, weirdly, we've all been running infrastructure for 30 plus years, and we're still not great at understanding when I build this app and deploy it and I have 2 million users, how much energy is that all going to take? How many carbon, what's my carbon footprint of my infrastructure, and what is that footprint separated from my app? So how can I measure my carbon footprint in my app and my distributed app, my microservice app, as well as my infrastructure, as well as the other parts of the data center. Now, data center operators, if you're one of those people that's been ops for a long time, I mean, I used to be ops in that data center. I used to have to wear a coat to work even in the summer because it was freezing in there.
Absolutely.
And we've been working on the power problem for decades, and we would get very specialized hardware and software to measure that. But anything into the OS and beyond was it was a black box. You did not understand if someone decided they were going to deploy 5 new databases, how much energy that used. So a lot of the keynote was talking about projects to do this, which we saw, we even saw a little bit in Detroit. There was one talk. I can't remember her name, but she talked about an open source project.
Yep.
You remember that?
Yeah. And there was some keynotes around this, like the language of sustainability.
Right. It was teaching us actually, like acronyms.
Yeah, that was starting to become a trend since Detroit. Amsterdam, there was more.
Yeah.
And then Chicago, there was even more. And now it's the day 2 keynote, right? It's the topic of day 2. So to our audience, I'd like to ask, is sustainability becoming a bigger area of concern or something to consider in your architecture, something that your team is looking into? I'd love to know if that's something that comes up in your day-to-day or in your architecture reviews. Because that's definitely the message for day 2 was around sustainability.
Yeah.
And how this Kubernetes ecosystem can elevate that information.
It was kind of a call to action.
Yes.
I felt like it was a call to action to us that, one, the projects are starting, like they've been there, some of them have been there a while, some are very new. It's getting easier, but it's not easy to measure, not just even energy and carbon footprint, but we talked about water because sometimes you have a lot of water in a data center. If it's not water in the chillers, it may be even water powered cooling in your GPUs.
Absolutely.
So how do you measure water usage and water waste? How do you measure energy use and energy waste? Like you turn on a computer and it's doing nothing but idle, understanding that usage. Yeah. We've had that for decades. That's not that there, but being able to say, I just created a microservices app with 30 different Golang and 20 different Rust apps, and I got, React in the front, and my whole thing has this carbon footprint on average on a daily basis. It's very rare to meet someone that has a grasp on that. I think that the very end, that the message was, we are still early days on this, but you should get started now because there's a lot to learn. There's even terminology and all these things we have to learn and understand. It's a new thing for a lot of engineers. So get started now so that you can tiptoe into it instead of be behind the curve and then have some sort of mandate, whether it's an EU mandate. It could be an EU mandate. It could be a United States White House mandate. We don't know. And suddenly you're now, like the security stuff has happened in the last few years, suddenly you're backpedaling or trying to figure out how do I actually quantify all of my stuff. So I'm excited for that. I am so new to this. I was basically writing down terms and stuff from the show. I was like, okay, I don't know anything about that. They're going to have to learn about that thing. There's definitely a lot to learn there.
Interesting.
All right. I'm going to go grab one of our guests.
Okay.
You got a list. I'll be back in a minute.
I'll do it real quick. So, the other things that I see as themes at KubeCon this year at Paris are around migration of workloads. I know some of our audience are in different stages of adopting Kubernetes as a platform, changing their workloads from on-premise, on virtual machines, to Kubernetes. And I think this is actually a place where we're seeing a lot of activity around the messaging, the assistance, using the developer experience to help with the migration of those workloads and remove the friction as much as possible from that story and from getting those workloads into containers and onto Kubernetes to take advantage of this awesome ecosystem of tooling for your applications and make them modern. The next thing is just quick shout outs around the ambient mesh. So going toward an eBPF centered service mesh, this idea of not having sidecars anymore, but having this ambient mesh that's lighter weight to provide that service mesh capability and advanced routing and network capability. And as a side note, I did a talk here at KubeCon yesterday evening, on network visibility, and that's another hot topic. Now as we're deploying more and more complex workloads on Kubernetes, network visibility into those workloads, what services they're talking to each other, which services are talking cross availability zones, cross regions, cross cluster, and also to things like load balancers and other cloud services. It's becoming, it was an issue to get that visibility, and it's now being highlighted as one of the areas of deeper exploration, new tooling coming out, and likely where eBPF, again, it's oriented toward networking, right? In terms of what it was created for, network visibility coming from eBPF and correlating it to Kubernetes metadata. And that is definitely an area that I'm seeing more activity here at KubeCon. And the last thing I just want to shout out to, profiling is now part of OpenTelemetry. As some of you know, being on the show, I've talked a little bit about OpenTelemetry, and we're seeing now profiling as part of that today. So, who's our guest?
Yeah, I'm looking in chat. That's actually a pretty good comment by Sudu Mimich. Hello.
Hello.
Another Docker captain, and he was just mentioning that there is the LLM and AI push are fundamentally at odds with each other with sustainability because so much workload. But I think it actually highlights how important it is that we actually have the green workload mindset when we're going into AI, so that we're at least aware. I mean, we understand all of our compute is going to take energy, and we're constantly expanding it, especially with AI. But if we don't understand how it's using the power and how much we're using and where it's being used and where we could possibly save, then we're never going to get it under control until it's until years from now when it's maybe too late for some of these projects.
I get where that sentiment comes from.
Yeah,
but
I was thinking the same thing actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, earlier today
convinced.
I was like, yesterday was all about using energy. Today is all about saving energy.
Yeah, but I'm not convinced totally, because it's not the full picture. It's not an either or in my mind.
Yeah.
And I know you've
Sure.
you've worked on on-premise data centers.
Yeah.
And you know that it's like the Walmart Christmas shopping parking lot sizing.
Yes.
That you had to do when
Yes.
you bought hard gear once a year or at once 3 years.
Yeah.
And so I think Kubernetes is in a spot as a way to more efficiently use the infrastructure that exists.
Yeah.
And I might actually turn this thing, I don't think they're at odds, because if you're doing AI or machine learning on this infrastructure, yes, it consumes power, but because of the constraint and supply of GPUs and this compute, most of all the people doing this are very sensitive to the performance and the cost and the power utilization, because at the end of the day, the cost comes from power.
It's a lot of money to run your LLM. So
in fact, this is an opportunity where the incentives are actually aligned, right?
Okay.
So you're incentivized not to to squeeze as much performance, 99% plus or whatever it is, out of the infrastructure you have.
Don't push the turbo button unless you have to.
Versus, your lamp stack that's been running on a a massive box in a corner.
The Pentium 2. The Pentium 2. Yeah. All right, this has been great. We're actually going to have a show up, I think, on this, because we definitely need to bring in some of the energy projects to understand some of the metrics and the things we're going to be talking about that I need to learn. I mean, we're basically going to bring them on to teach me. So, you mentioned our first guest. So 2 weeks ago, if you watch our show regularly, and if you're on the newsletter, you would know who's on our show. So 2 weeks ago...
I would?
You would? Yes, you would. Bret.news. Hot, yeah. So we're actually gonna bring on the co-host, or not the co-host. I'm the co-host. You're the co-host. We're gonna bring on the co-founder.
You're always trying to replace me, Bret.
Of Daytona. So 2 weeks ago, Daytona was on our show. You can go back in our live stream list and find that show. We did demos. Yes. We had a whole team on that we were basically spending an hour talking about this new open source project from Daytona for managing your environments for development, whether it's local, remote, in the cloud, in the data center, It's a really slick little CLI interface. So we're gonna get into it. Come on in. Come on in. I would have the applause sound, but I don't have it hooked all in. So
Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that?
Oh yeah.
Hey guys.
Wait. Are you too? This is like laggy 10 seconds, so don't go too far. If you have any questions, I'll do this. I'll be this guy.
We'll do it.
All right. Introduce yourself to the audience. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah.
My name is Vedran, CTO and co-founder at Daytona. And as you announced, Daytona is a development environment manager.
Yeah.
So we actually want to remove all the complexities from setting up development environment. And we want to streamline that process and make it as easy as possible.
Okay. We had a whole show on this, and we really kind of talked about some of the problems of like today's developer doesn't have just one type of development environment. We often were, at least for me especially, I have multiple IDEs that I use, depending on whether I'm remote or I might be a web-based IDE, might be a local IDE, I might be in a shell IDE. All of you sysadmins out there, I see you on Vim. I know what you're doing. And the challenge is like we don't want to spend all of our time managing these environments, but we also don't want centralized sort of batten down the hatches, locking it down sort of approach. So yeah, could you talk a little bit about real quick, just for the people that didn't get to watch that show, sort of give them a teaser. What are we talking about here? This is an open source project, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Actually, we started top down, but then we kind of figured out that we want to give this to developers for free.
Okay.
And we launched...
Come this way a little bit, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get close, we're friends.
So we launched the open source project a week ago, and the feedback is amazing. So we got almost 5K stars and still rising,
Nice.
which is totally unexpected.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So
that was on our show. That was on our show. It wasn't
Thank
5K
you.
then.
No.
But yeah.
So yeah, I definitely invite everyone to try it and to contribute. This is an effort for community. We do have a commercial offer, but for a single developer, this is a completely free Apache license, so you can do whatever you want with the project.
Yeah, we showed on there like talking about sort of you can just use this CLI locally, right? And you can manage your sort of inside of Docker. You can basically one line set up an entire independent developer environment. It even gives you out of the box if you want VS Code web-based in case you don't have that. It almost felt like if I install Docker and I install Daytona and then I basically make sure Docker is running and you did this couple of commands and just like one or two commands in Daytona, I could kind of skip a lot of the other work if I wanted to on, especially if I'm on a machine that is not mine or like in my case, sometimes mine's dead, so I got to use my wife, so I log in as me and I realize none of my tools are on it. And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to, in the past, the only option I really had that was available for me was code spaces and a VS Code there. So we talked on the show about how this is basically the open source code spaces.
We want to, okay, you can put it this way. So
okay, put it this way, yeah. Hopefully I was mostly correct on that.
It's good, it's good.
Yeah,
we want to keep that code spaces experience. We want to make it as simple as possible. So like, ideally you would just pick your repo, maybe a branch, and you should be ready to code.
Yeah.
So like really fast context switching, as you said, local machine, remote machine, you can set up anywhere. So you mentioned Docker. Docker is now like a first provisioner that we made, but we're gonna make like provisioners for any other platform, and we'll support cloud providers like AWS, Azure. So.
I know someone who would vote for AWS next.
Yes, I do.
And as said, everything is open, the interface is there, everyone is welcome to contribute and to make additional provisioners, providers. So.
Yeah. It kind of works the same way. The cool part about it that I started to think about was I'm able to create, like a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have a bunch of shell scripts that I want to spin up my own sort of. Before Daytona, before that, I had like some shell scripts that would spin up an instance, do a bunch of Ubuntu apt installs, install Docker, do a bunch of things, install the VS Code remote tools, like do all this stuff for me, and that might take 5-10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And I would do that often when I maybe was on my. I used to have an iPad setup that, luckily, my M1 is doing okay. But I had an iPad setup where I would just provision on when I was on travel.
Yeah.
I would provision a machine when I needed something, because the iPad obviously isn't great for development as an actual machine running it, because you can't run Docker on an iPad yet. But this kind of feels like sort of like my handy go-to tool for anytime I want separate instances of environments,
Yes.
maybe, and I don't want, and I can basically delete it as well with a single command, right?
Exactly,
So if it's temporary.
So that's ephemeral environments.
Yeah.
And we enable you exactly that. And on top of that, we automatically add a layer of security. So all of these environments, physically, they actually create a separate VPN for each project. And then when you connect from your device to a remote device,
Right.
everything is secure. You can access all your ports, and you basically get that local feel while still having all these layers of security and configuration
Yeah.
done by Daytona. So
Yeah.
as said, the idea is that you just type a command and you get everything.
Nice. Yeah, so if you want to check it out, well, of course, go back 2 weeks on our live show on this YouTube channel that you're watching now. Oh, by the way, you were watching YouTube if you didn't know that. And you go back there on the live streams, just look for open source code spaces. That's the show. Or just go to Daytona.io, check it out. You can get from there to the GitHub repo. What is it on GitHub? Like github.com/
Daytona.io/Daytona.
Okay, perfect. Nice and easy. But yeah, you can download that. I was basically without any instruction. I just knew you guys were coming on the show. Within 5 minutes, I was in a VS Code browser on my project. It pulled down the repo automatically. I was in my code, and it was like I never left. It was like I was on my machine that normally I use. So
Easy peasy.
easy peasy.
Nicely said.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming. We actually didn't even know this was going to happen. We didn't know that he was here today. So this all happened very last minute,
Yes.
Unrehearsed. We did it awesome. We killed it. So thanks again, man.
Thank you for having me,
Yeah.
and see you around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you soon. All right. Did we? I think we had a couple other guests, and they were like, we're out.
Oh no, come on.
We're all out.
They'll come back around.
Anyway, so I gotta. By the way, Docker. If you watch these, I really need one of those Docker race jackets. So if you didn't know, we're at the Docker
Hold on.
booth.
Not just for you.
Like, right, if you can see behind Nirmal, the movie has shades on.
Where are our jackets? That's
And,
what Brett's asking.
and
Where are
everybody
our
at the
jackets?
Docker booth has a jacket. Captains didn't get a jacket, but in terms of dope swag,
Oh, yeah?
that's a pretty dope jacket.
Yeah,
I'd
there we
wear
go.
that around town. I'd wear that
Even
around town.
better than this Kubernetes shirt?
Yeah. Thanks to James, who was here. See ya. James Purin. I see you, Docker Captain. He's not physically here. He walked off.
Yes.
He bought me this shirt in Chicago, and thank you so much for this shirt. Again, applause button, applause button, applause
Yes,
button.
you're a great gift giver.
He is a great giver.
I hear
And you want to come on? Are you hanging out to watch? Yeah, let's introduce you. Let's make it. It's just on the internet forever. So
Hi, I'm Chris Ritter from Equinix Metal.
nice. And we had a show together. Didn't we?
We did. Yes.
Yeah. That was like last year.
It was. It's been so long already.
Yeah. So do you have a booth here? I haven't.
Yeah, Equinix has a booth right down.
Here,
Right.
let's
Right.
see the booth.
Yeah. How about I look on your high? Yeah. Equinix has a booth right down the hall.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
I've
have
been
to
doing
stop-
interviews over there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Is that live, or are you doing that for later?
Later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to do live on a show floor.
It is hard.
You
I don't
might know
I don't know
something.
why I'm a glutton for punishment. So I hope y'all appreciate it. It is hard to do this. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
That shirt. Someone.
It is a
Level Up.
wonderful shirt, though.
Yeah. I was saying James Purin.
Yeah, they bought it for you, yeah.
Bought it for me, and I didn't think I was going to wear it 2 KubeCons in a row because I did it in Chicago. But my wife was like, "It's so fantastic. You just have."
It's pretty
if you
good.
can't tell, it's actually the KubeCon logo on there. It does. You'd think it's just a Kubernetes logo, but it's actually the KubeCon logo.
Oh.
So it's very apropos for the conference.
It is appropriate.
Yeah. Anyway, so mention your podcast or your content. Like, tell us your content. Where can we find your content?
We are over on Equinix Developers on YouTube.
Okay.
And you can find all sorts of cool shows there about using Equinix Metal and just the integrations we have with other partners and just how to get up and running with your DevOps on Equinix Metal workloads. So if you want bare metal, that's what we do.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was on the show last year. We talked about Docker. We talked about bare metal. We talked about, So you want to, I mean, bare metal's cool. I actually designed a t-shirt. I'm not even sure if I wore it on the show. A friend of mine and I designed an old 80s t-shirt look, like, metal back in the day.
Yeah, that's a good.
And it's a bear. So this is the like 3 memes deep. It's a bear with a keyboard, not a keyboard guitar.
A keytar?
Not a keytar, but an actual keyboard guitar. So
with QWERTY.
So we called it bare metal.
Yeah.
And we kind of went. Nobody really gets it. It's just an inside joke.
I've since working at Equinix Metal, I've seen a lot of bare, like BEAR metal puns.
Yes.
It's people like that.
Yeah, and we were trying to figure out if should we call it BA. Yeah, which bear do we use for the bear? Like,
you have a bear, so they have no clothes, and then they have the.
Bears are always bare.
I know, but
maybe not in in bare metal land.
We're
way down
friendly.
the list.
Yeah,
way down the list. But well, thanks for having me on your show. So check them out. And
thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah.
What have you found to be the most interesting thing you saw on the show floor?
He's trying to replace you. Most interesting thing in his show.
This doesn't have to be like the most significant thing. Like
Yeah.
who had the best cookie or the best T-shirt or something like that.
Ooh, best cookie. The lattes are always on point. Like the last couple of shows, we've had some great lattes. So I'm just going to shout out to the latte crew over there because they work for hours. They're cranking out lattes.
Right there.
Faster than they're insane. And that's why you see this line here. Everybody's trying to get a latte.
You think it's a big giveaway? No, it's just coffee.
Just
People
coffee.
want coffee.
It's they're not winning hats or a motorcycle or
Like right over there is smoothies, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you see those? That's
So
crazy.
An entire booth of smoothie bars. It's not just one smoothie bar. It's like a row of smoothie bars. We also got Mario Kart and
the Mario Car without a T.
Car.
The legally distinct Mario Car.
I see you trolling in the background of my show. We're talking about favorite thing in the show. What do you, not just the booth, but like he mentioned cookies. It's the interviewer getting interviewed. So
oh my God, talk about being put on the spot. Favorite thing in the show, I think.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on.
I'm here. I think it's probably the projects area this time.
Oh.
Yeah, they've got some really nice little pop-ups.
And it doesn't feel like it's relegated to like the way back corner this time either. The projects.
No, it's like
projects area.
It's like right in the heart of it.
It's hard to you pass by it constantly.
Well, yeah, exactly. Even by accident.
And it's got like a carpet. It's got a whole different look, so you know where you're at. Okay, and in fact, that's where Nirmal and I tend to hang out. That's where we get our guests from the show. Is all the projects, right? The KubeVerts, which was a big conversation in the keynotes today, was like virtualization was actually a conversation in the keynote, which we don't get a lot of keynote conversations about virtualization in KubeCon. So that was actually
and
interesting.
did you see that Akiro's there?
The what?
Did you see that Akiro's there? Container D?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so it's some good people there.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about the energy focus and responsible computing. We don't really have like a single hashtag for this term of like green energy computing or responsible computing or sustainable computing. Hashtag sustainable computing. That's too long. We don't have time for that. Nobody's got time for that.
You'll run out of tweets. You'll run out of letters on your tweets as well.
We'll workshop it.
Yeah, we're gonna work.
Actually,
you let us know in chat
what
we should call it.
GenAI.
Okay, so somebody get on right now. We're gonna ask GenAI, real world. All right, I think we're about to wrap this up. By the way, thanks for the shirt.
I know, I love it.
It's fantastic. It's very me. We had all of our berets and it was too hot for all that. Like we had to get rid of it. It's very hot in here today. Outside it's even hotter.
So do we have some questions? Or?
Ooh, we've got some people in here. Argentina, MJB.
Nice.
Daytona team is watching. Hello, Luke. What's up? Albano, what's up?
Do you want to ask your guests, right? Because that's a gift shirt. How much do you think I spent on buying you this gift?
A lot. It was a lot because I looked at the price and decided not to buy it for myself. But then he did and gave it to me, which that's why I was so grateful because I was like, I didn't feel like I didn't deserve it. It was a lot.
You deserve it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here, James. And
Yeah, it wasn't planned.
what's
Just walking by.
What's the one thing? What's the one takeaway? Did you already ask that? No.
No.
What's the one takeaway from KubeCon EU Paris that you want to
On day two.
I think it's still from day one. I need to spend a lot more time with looking into AI, which is obviously
Yes.
the huge focus. And from today's one, the WASM stuff as well. I think the keynote, that actual point where they were saying about the spin-up speed, virtual machine, container, WebAssembly, that was a really good point. And seen lots of things on WASM, but not really much on that aspect.
Yeah, we actually didn't mention that word today, but we did talk about that a lot last time and the time before. So,
Thank you, James.
yeah, thank
Appreciate
you. And stick around for a minute. We're going to do a selfie. We're going to do a big old group photo.
Thank you.
But yeah, so by the way, James has his own channel. That's YouTube at Dive Into.
Yep, dive
Yes.
into.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
he's got Docker content, Kubernetes content. What else you got there?
Ansible as well, which, funny enough, it is my most popular course.
Mr. Ansible. Coming soon, GenAI
with Ansible.
with Ansible. I mean, it's probably going to be a thing. If it isn't a thing, it just became a thing.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
well, thank you all for watching on the live stream. We're going to basically end it from here, unless you all have questions, and you don't. So we will be doing this again next time, assuming the internet behaves, and coming by next week. So we've got guests coming on the show next week.
Oh.
Next week is, we're wrapping up. You don't get to be on the show.
He could say hello, couldn't he?
Come on over.
Do you all want to see this?
You want to see
Dr.
who
Captain?
we're talking about?
So I've just squeezed on in.
I've put my deodorant on and I've got chewing gum in because I thought I'm going to be up close and personal with people. So, yeah.
All right, we were just talking about one thing, like one takeaway from the event so far.
This is rubbish, right? But I've just done like my 5 favorite things from the event, and one of them was my best attendee name. This is so weird. It's actually on his badge because I was signing my books.
Oh, yeah.
And I look at everybody's badge. His name was Mighty. Literally on his badge, his name is Mighty. So it's like, hey, I'm Mighty. Whoa. So it's not really a takeaway from the event, but it's a highlight for
It's
me.
a highlight for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You got to sign the book. So
I did. Yeah.
if you didn't know, Nigel has like the world record for the longest book queue at a KubeCon. So I'm going to say it here. Like last time, it actually was like a what's the curve we find in nature that constantly spirals out? Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah, like a golden
ratio. It looked like that because it was like wrapping around the booth and around itself. And
So what's one non-name takeaway from KubeCon?
I should have something prepared, shouldn't I? So this is going to be super cheesy, but I genuinely do mean it. Not that they were ever gone, but Docker is properly back.
yeah.
The Docker is back. So
That's why we're here. That's why we did it at the booth.
Exactly. So on my 5 takeaways, it was best booth was Docker.
Yeah.
But not just because it's cool. There's like so much going on, and they've got so much.
There's
at the
always
moment.
people here. It's always got people going on. Yeah.
And I think like for my main Docker book, I used to update it every year, and I put it to sleep for about 3 years because I thought Docker was not done, but it was stable in it.
Yeah.
And now there's Scout, there's Init, there's Debug, there's just honestly
We got the
everything.
GenAI stuff in there with Olama, and we got
100%. So Docker is rocking. I already knew that, but like platinum sponsor. Like
all of us that make content and cook books and courses that we keep up, we all got work to do. It's basically,
yeah,
basically
absolutely.
that's what it means.
But it's good, right?
Yeah.
Really good. So yeah, my non-attendee name takeaway is Docker is back.
Awesome.
Oh,
Nice.
and we're going to end it with that,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen.
Can't beat that.
By the way, next week we're going to have K2D on, another Portainer project. The team for Pertainer is going to be on. K2D, if you didn't know, is Kubernetes on Docker. It's an API that allows you to deploy things like Argo on a single Docker node without ever installing Kubernetes. So, hot take, I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be slick. We're going to see if people want it and if they'd like it, and that's going to be fun to talk about. So come back this time, maybe actually not this exact time because we're in Paris, but you can get on our newsletter at Bret.news and find out who's going to be here, when they're going to be here every week, and we'll see you next time on the YouTube Lives.
Tune in next time to figure out the other way for Bret to replace me. Bye, y'all.
Boom, boom. And this is the part at which I try to figure out how to stop the show because I can't figure it out.
This is KubeCon Paris. Woo!
I didn't trade you on
GenAI.
On the stop button here. There is no stop button. It's just going to last forever. Are you sure you want to stop streaming?